Hello everyone, Mrhappy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mrhappy, aka Mrhappy Mondays, the weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. I know this is coming a little bit later in the day than Mondays with Mrhappy usually does, and apologies for that. I haven't really been feeling well these last couple of days. I'm recording this in the middle of the afternoon on Monday to give you some sort of reference. I slept a lot yesterday, I slept a lot today, I still have a headache today. So, you know what, it's almost at the 1 year mark, so as much as I'm not really feeling up to recording today, I figured I'd at least try to get through a recording, just for the sake of getting it done. Quick little announcement, got my passes for PAX Prime, me and my girlfriend's passes for PAX Prime, all 4 days. Am I holding 4 cards in each hand? Yeah, I think I am. Woohoo! Look at that. I'm not going to lay them all out, but looking forward to doing that. Going to be going to PAX Prime at the end of the month, and then we'll be at TwitchCon next month with my girlfriend for both of those events. So if you're going to either of those events, you will probably see me there. And I don't know what I'm going to be doing, if anything special, for PAX Prime and TwitchCon in terms of videos on the channel. I am still working on those videos, but like I said, I've been sick the last couple of days. Saturday was like an all-day savage day, and I think I kind of just took a toll on my body that I haven't really recovered from in the past 2 days. Probably just an overall just body being worn down kind of thing. Don't worry, channel's not going anywhere. Once I'm feeling better, things will get back into the groove of the way that they were. So I got plenty of lore videos, plenty of thoughts videos. I actually really want to do a thoughts video on Gathering, since I've been doing a lot of that. So anyway, let's get into the weekly Q&A. Thank you everyone for asking questions. We had quite a few this week. I'm going to see what I can do going through these as best as possible. Going to do that thing where I don't really cut away from the video. I'm just going to go through questions. Same thing, going to try to restrict to 1 question per post because it's the only way I can get through more posts. You know, I miss so many questions every week because I'm trying to, you know, satisfy everyone answering 1, 2, 3, 4 questions. Unless they're really quick, I'm going to try and keep it to 1 question a person, just like I did last week. So, up first, hi, Happy, reposting my second question from week 50. See, now that's a clever way to get around it, because now, that's actually a pretty good way of doing it, because that's fair. I'll be answering this one. Hope all is going well with your Savage endeavors, also week 52 hype. Yes, that'll be next week, the 1 year anniversary. I am a warrior main and wanted to get your opinion on Fellcleave's sound effect. Okay, so I immediately can't give you any sort of opinion. I play without sound on. Like, that almost always includes background music, in-game sounds, you know, menu effects, all that. I play with it all off. It's very distracting to me, especially in the middle of things like Savage where I have to hear the same I'd have to hear. I couldn't deal with it. So I actually don't know what Fellcleave sounds like, so unfortunately I cannot answer your question. Apologies. Moving on to the next one. Greetings. There's a another 2-part question here. Again, just going to be taking the first one. I was surprised summoners didn't get new Eggies for the 3 primals in Heavensward. I'm referring to 3 storyline Eggies to replace Ifrit, Garuda, and Titan. I believe Yoshi P said that summoners will get an Eggy Glamour system. Do you think that'll include all the primals so far, just reverting back to Carbuncle, or some sort of mix? I imagine it'll be the option to do Carbuncle. I imagine it'll be some of the Eggies. They teased an Eggy or 2 in the actual summoner storyline for level 50-ish, so probably going to get the Ramu, Leviathan, Shiva. Probably just the original 6, I'd imagine. No Bahamut Eggies, no like Phoenix Eggies or anything like that. Probably the original 6 primals. I don't think Mogomog will be a thing there. Plus the 2 carbuncles you had leveling up. I don't know if you'll get Alphino's extra carbuncles or not. But who am I to say? I'm not the one working on it. But that is my honest guess when it comes to what they're going to be doing. Next question. Hey, Haps, first off, since it's been a while since I've been around your stream on the forums because I've been way too busy leveling all my class up to 60, I got to get on that too. I just wanted to throw this in here. Hap Potato. My life is potato. With that out of the way, on to a question for week 51. In the vein of all wonderful Astrologian questions you got last week, in your opinion on how crappy the shields are, and yes, they are crappy, I think I may have found a way of making them a bit more desirable in comparison to the higher potency Scholar shields. I can take a cue from the warrior skill Vengeance and add a small damage reflection to them with a low proc and a low percentage for balancing, of course. Maybe something like 20% chance to reflect 10%. That's way too much. That's already like way over the top, so I wouldn't expect that. Since theoretically you can keep the shield up the whole fight. This would make the Astrologian shield a bit more useful in fights where the tank is taking consistent damage but not a massive tank buster hits. It would really prompt the usage of Nocturnal for trash and other minor bosses while still emphasizing Diurnal for big bosses with a large single target hit. Do you think that this could be a viable way of making Nocturnal Sect more useful, or do you think this would just be too OP? I think the numbers you listed were too OP, but I think that there's no real way of making that useful. Like, Astrologian has more underlying issues than just the Nocturnal Sect shields. It comes down to a little bit more of their damage output. While it is reliable, which is something is very positive, their dots have 100% accuracy, which is a very, very major thing when it comes to outputting damage. It's just that their other spells don't have that same benefit. And of course, Scholars still have the advantage of being able to heal and DPS at the same time. Of course, with the Fairy being a little bit weaker than it used to be. And the shields themselves, well, in terms of what their utility is, mitigation is the entire point of those things. I don't think you can just add an effect to the shield unless it's some sort of damage reduction. And it's not only the Nocturnal Sect heals shields that are a problem. Collective Unconsciousness. Is it Collective Unconsciousness or the other one? I always mix up the Y'shtola shield and the AoE stun with the 5-second buff duration thing. Whichever one is the shield, that also is another major point of weakness on Nocturnal Sect. Just it's a sacred soil that stops you from being able to do anything while you're activating it. Considering it is the same strength as Sacred Soil, one potential buff would be to double its strength to 20%, since it has a very glaring weakness of you not being able to do anything while it's up. I just feel like a lot of the points that they really wanted to get across need to be revisited, buffed, changed, something along those lines. I don't think the 20% chance to reflect 10% damage or something would probably make it any more useful. People would still definitely prioritize giving the tank a regen and then just DPSing themselves, which would probably be less MP efficient, but it would be faster. Excuse me, it would be faster. If you're playing an Astrologian correctly, you still wouldn't run out of MP. If you're using light speed efficiently, if you're using your cards efficiently, the pulls would still be over faster doing that than they would be just using Nocturnal Shields and praying that it reflects enough damage back onto the targets. It needs to be revisited. It either needs to be just straight up strengthened or some sort of change. I don't know if it's along the lines of what you're suggesting, but something to make them more desirable. To go back to the drawing board is all I want them to do with Astrologian. Next question. Hey, happy almost anniversary. Yay, SO bonus. Yes. Anyways, I have 2 questions this week, but if you can only answer one like last week, please only answer the first. I like the request of only answering the first, as the second is more personal. But I like answering personal questions. Sometimes I like answering them. Anyway, on to the questions. Also, apologies. The first one might be a bit longish. Oh, don't worry. I can see that. That's why I considered answering the second one until you told me only to answer the first one if you really had to choose. I actually looked at both of them and said, second one looks like it's kind of short. I think I'll go with that one. Then you asked me, and, well, I will grant your wish. I scholar main and don't care for dissipation, but it doesn't affect how I play my job. But I've noticed and seen that Astrologian, Black Mage, and Bard all have a difficult time because of either new abilities or changes to the old ones. I was wondering your thoughts on these suggestions. For Astrologian, why can't the regen stack? Every other regen stacks. You mean if you have 2 Astros? I mean, you'd never want to bring 2 Astros both in Diurnal Sect anyway, so I don't think that is a fix to the job. Like, that doesn't help. A White Mage regen and an Astrologian regen still stack, and I would never want 2 Astrologians in a group. Yes, does it make it suck for things in the Duty Finder? Absolutely. However, in that case, I would actually say, okay, go Nocturnal. I mean, it's not the greatest, but at least we're not overlapping our effects. And also, you have to consider that I guess it is kind of strange. At some points it's strange, at some points it's consistent. It's weird that regen stack but shields don't, for example. That is definitely a weird thing. Whispering Dawn, as you listed there, why not Aspected Benefic and Helios if you have 2 Diurnal Sect Astrologian? I guess that would be a nice little thing, but that still doesn't essentially fix anything with Astrologian other than the occasional Duty Finder RNG, which is really only a big deal inside of Alexander Normal, in which case it doesn't even matter if you're Nocturnal because the fights are so easy that you could be double Nocturnal if you wanted and probably still be okay. Not recommending that though. Let's see. As for Nocturnal Sect, what about changing the shield to percentage instead of a flat number? That would be actually, I would prefer that change over the other one, but then you have to consider its strength. Like, the whole point is they never want it to be as strong as the Scholar's shield. So then it still has to be weaker than it. And since it doesn't have the whole proc system, I just think it needs to do the same thing, just with crit, just not being as much, like 1.5 times the amount. Just something so it's not as useless, I guess, is really. I don't want it to be better than the Scholar shield or equal to it. I just want it to be less useless. That's the ultimate thing that I think it could be used for. Never Thunder 1, 2, and 3, what about changing them to being off the global cooldown moves with a short cooldown similar to Fluid Aura? That is one way to fix it. I don't know how often Black Mages get the ability to use off the global cooldown abilities unless they're forced into the rotation. As someone who doesn't play it, I honestly don't know. I think ultimately, if I had to suggest anything, that's actually a pretty good way of looking at it. I think that would work at certain points, I guess I'd have to know more about the Black Mage rotation to really comment on that. It'd be better than the way they are now, I feel, if they were the same strength, but they were off the global cooldown, and then Thundercloud could give it just a restart and an instant cast and all that. Wouldn't interrupt the Nokian sensibilities, don't usually interrupt the mechanics of the rotation. I was also of the idea that just make them every time you hit with a Thunder skill, regardless of whether it's a Thundercloud proc, just extend a Nokian's duration by 3 seconds. That way you can hard cast a Thunder or Thunder 2, still get the duration back, and then Thunder 3 would only hard cast at the start of a fight anyway. And then Thundercloud procs would just be 3 seconds, which would, based on your spell speed with your ley lines and your personal buffs, that would actually be a pretty decent extension on the Enochian ability, and would make them fit a lot more cleanly into the rotation, I feel. But, of course, that's just me as an outsider. Again, don't play Black Mage. And as for Bard, I don't really like Minuet. The whole point of a Bard, lore-wise, was mobility. So why get rid of it? Do you think they should just have made Minuet on increasing DPS song for melee, similar to foes for mages? What would you change Minuet if you could? I wouldn't. Because the biggest complaint about Bard... okay, so the mobility aspect of it has always been something that people have really enjoyed. But it's something I don't see people using necessarily correctly. The game now demands that if you want to use that mobility, you have it available. And that's something a lot of bards don't seem to understand. That you're not supposed to have Minuet up and run across the arena with Minuet still on. You're supposed to turn it off, do your like 2.0 sort of bard play, turn it back on when you can stand still. Granted, you are now also looking for every opportunity to stand still, so you don't need to turn it off. It's just this combination of things that that people don't really like. They don't like it when there's a drastic playstyle change to a job they played for a year and a half, and I can totally get that. I personally am a fan of Wanderer's Minuet. I feel like there could be a little bit of, how do I say this? They could make it a little bit cleaner to use. Maybe reduce the cast time by another 0.1 second. That doesn't sound like a lot, but it makes a pretty big difference when it comes to cleanly fitting abilities in between your global cooldown. That's about really the only thing I think I would change with Wanderer's Minuet. I'm a fan of it. It turns black... I mean, I guess that's what it is. It turns bards into black mages. It turns bards into a more reliable damage threat, and I know some people say they'll always do less damage. I even say that they'll always do less damage because of songs as of utilities, but they still do a respectable amount of damage while offering those utilities if they use Wanderer's Minuet correctly. Gauss Barrel 2, yeah, I mean, I guess same thing. I would just reduce it by 0.1 second. Then additionally, do you think Wide Volley connected to Bloodletter? You mean Rain of Death? Oh, I guess Rain of Death. Well, no, because here's the thing. Rain of Death has that additional use. You almost would never use it before. You would never go out of your way to put evasion on the target. Because what? It's like, I'm not going to waste like 160 TP to give the boss evasion minus when almost everyone except for the healers is probably accuracy capped. The difference is now, if you have two targets that are, you know, taking hits, and you want to group them up and you want to give them that evasion minus debuff so that your healers can reliably DPS, you have that option off the global cooldown. It's a DPS increase on 2 or more targets, and even if you were to do it on a single target, as long as your healers are DPSing and you are reducing the amount of misses that they experience, it can actually be an overall raid DPS increase, even though it's a personal 50 potency loss. It really comes down to personal use of the ability. I can think of a few useful situations for it, specifically in Alexander Savage, but I'll probably talk about that when I go and I do Alexander Savage commentary video saying this would be a good time to Rain of Death. You hit all these targets, you guarantee that everyone's accuracy is okay on them, etc, etc, etc. Sorry I can't get to the second question. I have to clear my throat. I gotta take a drink. I got some iced tea right here. There we go. It's really hot today, so instead of cold water, I had cold water this morning. I have some iced tea right now, not the wrapper. Anyway, moving on to the next question. Hey, Mr. Happy, Driggs again with another question for Mondays with Mr. Happy. I'm currently the ninja in my static group and currently having accuracy issues. Oh, it's horrible. I know exactly what you're talking about. And I know that the ESO weapon is a better upgrade, especially for DPS, but the 86 accuracy on the chest. I spent almost a week looking at that chest like, should I just get it? Like, should I still go for the weapon and use accuracy food? That's what I've been doing. I actually had the I-180 HQ body crafted for me, since that has 69 accuracy on it. Melded it with some crit, melded it with some determination, but that is not an easy thing to do. That cost me a pretty penny in order to do. So yeah, that's what I had to do. I had to go with a grilled sweetfish, I believe, and I was hovering around 600 accuracy. I had to use a gear set that put me at about 600 accuracy in order to adequately hit enemies. Expect to still have to use some of your I-180 stuff to meet accuracy. It's just an unfortunate side effect of the body piece from Alexander having accuracy and the Assuran one not having accuracy. If you can get your hands on that before the 5th week, I would still go with your weapon. I wouldn't, you want the weapon. Trust me, you want the weapon. Just eat the accuracy food, get that weapon. You should be okay. Next question. Hey, Happy, what's up? I've been a long-time fan and viewer. Oh, don't worry, man. I know. I recognize your name. Don't think I don't recognize your name posted on the forums. Keep up the job. Epic pro job, bro. I feel like that was supposed to be a tongue twister. First time asker, so I know since it's been around for Monday, would have all your esoterics by then. Actually, I'm missing 4 esoterics. Thank you for reminding me. Then how would a piece of loot and upgrade token of your choice from any floor of Alexander Savage sound to? I think that you're teasing me because I don't actually get any of these things that we say I'm getting. This is my question, but the first time gift I got. I have a character customization question for you, and it's not any game-breaking way, but I would like to hear your thoughts about allowing players to have a choicer on how their relics look. Oh, you mean like when they're looking through their initial, when they're making their character and looking at how their relic is going to look? Like if some of us use like the look of our relic pre-Zodiac look, could we have that like that, but have it on the Zeta Glow and maybe add one other thing to make it our own relic? Wait, okay, so you're saying customize the actual look of the relic weapon. You know, I actually thought we were going to be able to do that originally, but it ended up not. I mean, more options is never a bad thing, as long as they're meaningful options, and I mean, sure, why not? I mean, we're getting a new relic in 3.1, or a new relic equivalent, or a Zodiac equivalent, however you want to look at it. So I guess, yeah, I'll just say, why not? Like, it doesn't affect my gameplay. You want it to be a different color, you want it to have spikes coming out the side or something, like one of a few limited options. Just don't be surprised if everybody likes the same thing and everybody ends up going with the spikes on the side. You know, that's never gonna happen, but yeah, sure, why not? More customization is never a bad thing. Next question. Holy moly. This is, okay, this person I may make an exception for. This person has 5 questions, but they're all like 8-word long questions. If they're really short, we'll see how I do. Hey, Mr. Happy, first time poster, so esoteric bonus. I have some short general questions. Let's see how it goes. 1, the Bard still have the trait for barrages increase auto attack. It's just a typo. It does what it says it does, where it adds hits to your abilities now. They just need to fix it. It's a typo. I don't know why they haven't fixed it yet, but it just needs to be fixed. 2, do you think they will change Flash to have a blind effect on the skill, giving it a use cross-class? No, that's a Paladin thing. It's already not that crazy of a skill to cross-class. The only class that would ever really use it would be Warrior, and that's only for really dungeon tanking and the occasional need for instant AoE non-directional threat, which is quite rare outside of dungeon. So no, I don't think so. I think that that's a utility that, you know, you're happy to bring a Paladin for. 3, what is your opinion on the scripts? Ugh. I had to do Red Gatherer scripts. Those actually aren't that bad. Red Crafter scripts really aren't that bad either. It's the whole choice of whether or not you want to actually progress your Gatherer Crafter or make money that's getting a lot of people down. I still think it is a little too tedious, especially for the more general player, the player who logs in maybe 3 hours a night and isn't super hardcore, but they work on their crafters and their gatherers. It's rough on those players in particular, because now they got to decide, do I want to do Alexander? No, I won't cap my Essos. Okay, let me go cap my Essos, but then I won't cap my scripts. It's a pretty tough decision. Why does Royal Road have a shorter recast time than Draw? I don't know. It literally, you said it yourself. It makes no sense. I don't know. I have been playing Machinist, and I have a Bard at 50 before 3.0. I don't know which one I want to play as a DPS. They're both pretty similar. I mean, Machinist has its own little playstyle differences, but fundamentally they act the same. So just play whichever one you want. I'd say just try them both. That's the best thing that you can really, really do. And I noticed you have one last one. Those were the short ones. I'll count all those as one because I could have answered those questions in one fell swoop anyway. Next question. Hey, Mr. Happy. I've been watching your guides and other videos, especially Mondays with Mr. Happy. Sorry for the delay. For quite some time, I figured I'd ask a question for the first time. Now, I know that Dragoons have arguably the top DPS in the game right now, and I know that since I am main one, I shouldn't be complaining about the job, but there has been times where, because of some mechanics, I lose my Blood of the Dragon buff soon after activating it, causing my DPS to drop slightly. So I was wondering if I could get your opinion on thoughts about a change to the buff. I don't think that buff needs any changes. I'm sorry, I don't want to read the thoughts of the change. Part of Dragoon now is knowing when it is a bad time to use Blood of the Dragon, how to maintain Blood of the Dragon, how that's different in every fight. Maybe you have to omit a Skogul because you simply will lose stacks, and you're going to lose the stack for however long, and it's going to be an overall net DPS loss. That is part of the way the job plays now. Some fights it's kind of unavoidable, like there'll just be like 30-second downtimes where you're like, I know that's very rare. But there are some fights where it's just like, okay, well, when enemies become available again, I'll have Blood of the Dragon available. And it's about maintaining it long enough to the point where I will have the ability to recast Blood of the Dragon later. Maybe I'm speaking a little bit out of turn because I don't actually play a Dragoon and I don't understand the exact intricacies of it. But I played with a lot of Dragoons, and only in very few fights do I hear Dragoons really say, damn it, I keep losing these stacks. This fight is garbage. And that was like Ravana, maybe. I think Ravana was really the only fight where I heard it a lot. Occasionally Bismarck, if they use too many Skogul's trying to burst down the chitin or something like that. I think that's part of the skill of the job. I don't think it needs any changes. I think it's just highly reliant on skill speed and knowledge of the fight. That's the biggest thing, knowledge of the fight. Just in clarity, let's see. Let me see what your actual thing was. Putting a proc on Fang to reset the cooldown or even reduce the time remaining on the cooldown. Yeah, I think it's just a matter of you have to know the fight. You have to know the fight, and you have to know what you can get away with. It's something that has learning pains, but it's something that will pay off in the end. Holy moly. Next question. Hey, Mr. Happy, thanks for your reply last week. This week I have several questions, so I will organize them by subject, and you can pick whichever fits in case you don't have time to get to them all. Wow, he didn't even let me read them first. They're all spoilered, so I can't. All right. Let's see. We have duty finder and job balance, old content going forward, limit breaks, and 11 skill chains. I'm going to skip that one. Sorry, because I've answered that a million times, and I'm tired of that question. Final Fantasy 9 style Chocobo treasure hunting. I'm actually a fan of that one. White Mage and healer stats, or RMT. Well, I'm too dumb to talk about healer stats, or I'm not educated enough. Limit breaks I've spoken about a million times. Old content going forward. Like, I've spoken about most of these topics. RMT is actually not a topic I get to speak about too often, so I'm going to pick that one. Alright, RMT question. After a nearly year-long hiatus, I came back to find RMT spam is just as strong as ever. I know they are banning and whatnot to fight against this, but seriously, is there any hope? How has this not been fixed? There's nothing to fix. There's no way to get rid of it entirely. It's something. Oh, sorry, I hit my microphone. It's something that it's hard to deal with for people that may be not so keen to the MMO world. Like World of Warcraft had that problem for years, and it still has that problem with RMTs. I remember they used to have it even worse. I remember in World of Warcraft there was a point where RMT would positionally hack the game to get their characters like up on a wall, and they would spell out the name of the website that they were trying to organize. That used to, or trying to advertise. That was terrible. The RMT situation has actually died down significantly. Like, it, especially, Gilgamesh is one of the most populated servers. I so rarely, even hanging out in the main cities where they target players the most, I so rarely see RMT. Now, of course, that situation is different on other servers. I've heard that the Behemoth server still has quite the issues with RMT. But it's nothing you can get rid of entirely. They changed the algorithms, they changed the way that the chat works, and the RMT simply dissect it, try to understand the algorithms, and change the algorithm. There's no 100% certain way until the RMT start running out of ideas for algorithms to be able to automatically send messages to players. There's no way to stop them. They are persistent. They've been around for 15 years. And not necessarily only in 14, but as companies have been around for 15 years or longer. Like, and I say 15, actually, were they in Ultima Online? Probably not. I should probably just say, like, yeah, 14, 15 years. Yeah, like 13 years. Over a decade they've been around. And they're persistent. Trust me. It's nothing that's going to be able to be stopped all too easily. They will always come back. And they will always come back with a new way of getting around whatever algorithm blocks that Square Enix comes up with. And then they'll fix that, and then it'll happen. It's a vicious cycle of life. And as long as they're constantly getting rid of them, that's the best they can really do. Next question. Hey, Mr. Happy, thanks for answering my question last week about the hammer tank and your thoughts on it, but would still like to know your thoughts on my other question pertaining to Red Mage job. Sorry if it's a little choppy, I literally copy and pasted it over. Going off your Red Mage thoughts of a melee magic user, what would you think of the Mystic Knight being added where you can cast a spell on the sword? I mean, that's pretty much what my idea is of the Red Mage's end spells. And change the effect of their abilities or do different damage kind of playstyle would suit the game better than a melee caster, because the downtime on casting is rough, then to make it melee would almost kill the job. What would you think seeing a melee Mystic Knight join instead of a Red Mage-like caster? I mean, Red Mage end spells are kind of a thing. You just have to remember that, I mean, because so what you're basically listening to me is almost the same as the ninja poisons or the monk fists, like Fist of Fire, Fist of Earth, whatnot, where they have a stance that changes the way their abilities or the way their job or what utilities their job has in their immediate disposal, whether it be reduced damage taken from Fist of Earth or choosing between a silence and a stun on ninja. It sounds very similar to that, which actually fits in the which actually fits the game, because that's the way the game has been designed thus far. So it's actually a pretty good idea what you've listed right here. And anything could work. A red mage could just as easily do that. And a red mage, just because they're magic users, I think Dark Knight has kind of shown this, you don't have to have cast times to use magic necessarily. It would make sense for a red mage to have cast times, because, you know, mages generally have incantations and whatnot that need to be spoken, or there needs to be some sort of way for them to actually cast it. I think there's multiple ways to do it. I think your way is right. I think that the red mage can be done in a similar way to the Mystic Knight. I think there's a lot of right ways to do it, and everyone has their own idea of what's right and what's wrong, and I don't think either of us are right or wrong. Well, I guess I shouldn't say that neither of us are right. Neither of us are wrong, just different outlooks to the same end result. We want a magic user as a melee. And ultimately, if we get that, I'll be happy. Next question. Hey, Happy, longtime fan, first time asking. As a monk, I've seen others using Form Shift all types of ways for opener. Which do you think might be more effective? Form Shift into Coral before Perfect Balance, Raptor into Perfect Balance, Opal into Perfect Balance. Almost everyone I see does Coral into Perfect Balance. I am not a monk, so I cannot say which one is better. That's not fair of me as someone who has literally no experience with Form Shift or the job at all since the expansion has launched. I can only tell you that most people I know go with the early Coral, and I think the main reason is Perfect Balance can sometimes be a little bit tight to fit all 5 abilities in. And I think the idea, this is just me guessing, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, somebody out there who actually plays monk, absolutely feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But at first glance, seeing why I see so many people go into Coral as opposed to the other ones, because I've wondered this myself, my thought is that it's mostly because when you go into Perfect Balance, having that additional haste guarantees that the Perfect Balance ends up going efficiently, going smoothly, and it works into the rest of your rotation after Perfect Balance. Just having that extra haste and that extra damage going in, it's not just about the extra damage, it's also about the extra haste going in, is really what I'm trying to say. And how it makes the rotation a little bit smoother, makes it a little bit easier to pull off, guarantees that no matter what your skill speed is, that you can fit the full 5 global cooldowns in there, and there's no sort of threshold that you need to get past. I don't know if there's a skill speed threshold where you consider doing something different, but that's my first thought when I think of why people do Coral into Perfect Balance in the first place. Next question. Yo, Mr. Happy, first time poster, so take some bonus SOs. I have 2 questions. Recently come back to the game for Heavensward and currently have my summoner at level 53. I was wondering if you knew of people, places I could go for solid advice for optimal DPS ways to use the new abilities. This is going to be kind of rough. Google High Squared Summoner Guide. It's a very long guide. And when I say very long, you're probably like, oh, it can't be that bad. It's long. So prepare to do a lot of reading if you really want to understand the ins and outs. But it does have some TLDR sections where it's just like, here's your rotations. It will explain why, but if you don't care why, you could just take the information on its, just front loaded and then ignore all the background information. And Summoner is doing phenomenally as a job right now. One of my favorites, although Black Mage has started coming into its own, people starting to understand fights, where they can get away without moving, and I'm quite enjoying both casters and where they're sitting. I've already spoken about Black Mage and how I feel they could use a little bit of changes to be a little bit more consistent, but I don't necessarily think they need to be damage changes. I don't think they need any more damage on their kit. It's just to play a little bit smoother. I think they could use a little bit of changes. Same with the Bard. Alright, so I'm going to go to the next page because it took me a really long time to get through page 1. Just because I love answering questions. I'm sorry these videos always end up being so long. I also had a pretty long intro, so apologies. I've skipped around a few questions already just because I'm trying to get through as many as possible. So let's see what I can do. Hey Haps, thank you for my answer about the Reign of Death sharing of timer with Bloodletter. I wasn't sure whether or not the evasion decrease would increase my chances with the internal release. So my question, how do you feel about the new PvP, and can you explain morale a little, whether it increases the melds on the PvP gear or the gear itself? So I've heard good things about Seal Rock Seas. I've heard that the northern camp, and I've heard extensively that the northern camp is the worst camp to start at, just from a balancing standpoint. It's not so great. As for morale, morale is basically 1 point of morale, if I'm not mistaken, increases your item level, your average item level by 1, or no, the item level of that piece of gear by 1 or something like that. I don't know. I know morale directly ties into trying to force you to reach the item level requirement of PvP, but it's weird because the minimum item level to enter Seal Rock Seas is the same as the maximum item level that it sinks you to. So morale literally has no use there, which tells me that it's mostly going to be going into the Wolf's Den is where morale is probably going to be considered to be the most vital thing when they rework it, that is, because right now no one, who the hell cares, no one does the Wolf's Den, let's be real here. So I can't speak on it because I haven't done it. I've been spending all my time in Savage, so when I actually get around to doing it, I will make a video on it, do not worry. Next question, greetings from the UK, straight onto the question. I like this guy. What is your favorite trial in this game and why? Singularity Reactor. It's badass. That's it, that's the only reason. It's badass. Great music is badass. That's the only thing that I need. Oh, and you're including extreme primals and trials, and it would be the Savages for me because I love a good challenge. You know, I like things that are thematically cool. I like things that are challenging more so than the extreme primals because I don't find those very challenging. I'm a masochist, so whatever the hardest challenges in the game, that's generally where I'll lean towards as long as the fight is well designed and pushes me to my very edge, which is what Alexander 3 Savage has been doing for the last 2 weeks. Hopefully I can beat it tonight before the reset goes. Anyway, next question. Hey, Mr. Happy, first time asking, so Echo bonus, SO bonus, but still, for A3 Savage, I don't want SO bonus for A3 Savage, I just want to be done with A3 Savage. In your opinion, what is the dream 8-man party? 2 tanks, 2 healer, 4 DPS. Dark Knight, Warrior, Dragoon, Ninja. The last two I don't really care, like Black Mage versus Summoner or Bard versus Machinist. I'll take either or, just one of each. Either one Black Mage or Summoner or one Bard or Machinist, and then Scholar White Mage. That's what I would take, just because I like things dying super fast, and that composition murders things super, super fast. Next question. Hey, Happy. First time asking a question, so here's the SO bonus. Anyhow, to my question, with Esoterics out, as well as Alexander Savage and their items levels being 200 to 210, is getting the Hive weapons worth it, or should I try for the SO weapon? The SO weapon's guaranteed if you've been playing. You can get it tomorrow as long as you haven't been misspending your Esoteric, so you don't need a Hive weapon if you have an Esoteric weapon. So just get that. If you can get a Hive weapon in between the 3 weeks you're saving up for your SOs, go right ahead. It's a good buff. It'll definitely help you with things going forward while you're waiting. Otherwise, just get the SO. Just get the SO weapon. It's nice, easy. It's 990 tomestones of Esoterics, 3 weeks worth, and then in the next couple of weeks you can save up, get a body piece or something like that. But yeah, definitely get the SO weapon tomorrow, assuming you haven't already spent your SOs, which I hope you haven't already, before today. That's if you're going into Savage. You're not going into Savage. Buy whatever the hell you want with SOs. Like, you don't need Esoteric gear for anything other than Savage. Like, it's just glamour or making previous content even easier at that point. Next question. Hey, Happy. Question for week 51. Do you think the Astros are the new 2.1 to 2.4 Dragoon for the time? My nose itches a lot. I'm sure you guys know that. Just like on the top right here. I kind of get the feeling that they will mirror Dragoons or Screams. Will take a year to slowly buff Astros before giving up and then giving them real buffs. Well, here's the thing. Dragoons were always, like, okay, like, going from 2.0 all the way on. The biggest problems were the magic defense was stupid, and the fact that if a boss turned at a bad time, their entire rotation was screwed. Once they fixed those issues, Dragoon was in a fine place. Like, once they no longer had the lower magic defense, and they were no longer a liability in progression, and once they no longer had to worry about, oh, well, the boss turned suddenly, and I miss my heavy thrust, or the mechanics require me to be in this spot as opposed to on the flank, so I'm going to miss my heavy thrust. Like, once they fixed that, they were in a fine place. Now they're just crazy good when played correctly, so yeah, I mean, I guess in the terms of what you're asking me, yes, I have a feeling they will slowly buff them over time, but I don't know if I feel like they're worse than Dragon. The thing is, it only matters outside of Savage, and even in Savage, Astros have beaten Alexander 1 and 2 Savage. If you play Astro well, you can still do those fights. It's just not as optimal as the other jobs. That's pretty much the only thing. If you aren't designing your raid composition to be super optimal, there's no reason to exclude any job in the game at this point. There's really no reason. So yeah, as much as I like talking about how Astro could use this buff and it's not really that great, it's still a perfectly capable job at doing all these things. It just needs certain things ironed out, which we've been talking about the last 2 weeks. So in terms of, I guess, what you're asking, yes, but it can still do all the content perfectly fine. I don't know about Alexander 3 Savage in the current gear, but eventually it'll outgear it and it'll be fine there too. So overall, I wouldn't be too worried about the state of the job. I do think it could use a few changes though. Next question. Hey, Mr. Happy, what's up, mate? Not a first-time poster. Oh, don't worry. I know. I recognize you, man. I recognize you. I got nothing from me. Want law? Go next question. Damn. What if the next question? I wonder if the next question is actually worth a bonus. I'll check later. I used to be a semi-hardcore raider, used to join statics and clear endgame raids as a pug at least, but I can't be bothered with Alex Savage. The gear looks identical to normal mode, but just the item level is better. It can be dyed as well. We've known this for a while, that the Alexander Savage gear would be a dyeable, stronger version of the Alexander normal gear. That's been knowledge for some time now. I've done the normal mode story, so I don't need the story. I'm not that much into eye level, since esoteric gear eye level is damn close. Does this mean I was actually a casual all along? I don't know, because casual is a pretty broad term. I mean, casual could just be that, because, okay, so, I don't know, that's like a really weird question to just say, have I been a casual? I guess it depends on what you define as, because casual, so I've spoken about this, but it's been a while. I have 2 meters, or 2 bars for casual and hardcore. The first bar is how much time you invest into the game. Casual amount of time or a hardcore amount of time. That could be anywhere from someone who plays 30 minutes a day to like 18 hours a day. And then you have the progression-based casual versus hardcore. Casual being someone who's not really concerned with progression at all, whether it be through item level or completing extremely challenging content for the sake of at least personal satisfaction. And hardcore are the people who want to clear it as fast as possible. Not only is that the way they enjoy the game the most, but it's just where they find personal satisfaction. And then of course there is and then some people like to put on the idea that casual and hardcore means whether you're bad at the game or good at the game. It's all about your approach to the game. Whether you're bad at a job or good at a job is it's totally different. You could be hardcore as shit and be terrible at a job, and you could be super casual but be amazing at the job. It's a completely unrelated. It's just how your skill in the game is unrelated. Some would say that playing longer gives you more practice. That's not always the case. Sometimes it's down to a personal issue. So when it comes to you being a casual along, I don't know. I guess on the 1 meter of want to challenge yourself to the maximum and, you know, get as much gear as possible and just really rush the game as much as possible, I guess on that bar you're casual, but I don't know where you stand on the other bar, how much you play. So I guess on that one aspect, yeah, but that's not a derogatory thing. Like, being a casual is not a derogatory thing. It's a playstyle choice. And it's used as a derogatory, so it's hard to describe. I think that's the best way I can answer the question is in terms of trying to complete the hardest content, you are probably more on the casual side. It's just not a bad thing. Anyway, I only have a couple more questions left in me, and as you guys have probably figured, I'm just going to post this as is. I really want to get back to sleep. I know it seems like I'm not that tired, but my head is pounding right now, and I really need a little bit of a nap before I go into Savage tonight, because I don't want to be sick for that too. Next question. Hey, Mr. Happy, hug bonus. So there was a bonus from the next question. It's hugs instead of SOs. I guess that's fine. I have 2 questions, and they are both straight to the point. So just going to try to get through the first question here. 1, do you think it's worth equipping your main job with Alex gear normal now that we have SO equipment? 4 weeks to get Alexander normal body, or I can get SO body in 2. I'd say get your weapon before your SO body. Absolutely. Unless, of course, you're not planning on doing Savage at all, like I said earlier. If you're not planning on doing Savage, your weapon is like, it doesn't matter. Like, do you have the I-180 weapon? Great. You don't need a weapon better than that for anything. Eventually, you'll probably get your SO weapon just for the sake of progression, but that's about it. Sometimes it feels like SE kills content in such a short period of time. No, Alexander Normal is actually I still run Alexander Normal. In fact, I think I still need my A1 drop, which I'm just going to use as an accessory for probably my Dark Knight or my Astrologian. I'm going to start gearing up my other jobs using Alexander Normal loot every single week. And I know I could just get Alexander Savage loot on the weekly basis as well, but I never know when that's going to drop, and I'm probably going to end up having to spend my manifestos on gear for my ninja, so it's hard to really say, but I'll probably do a lot of that more casual gearing of other jobs also in 3.1 more. I think that it's fine because you can get that gear at a faster pace. Alexander Normal, if you're not leveling multiple jobs, may eventually lose its pace, but you got to remember, SOs take a pretty long time to accrue. So I'd say do it while you're accruing the SOs and then eventually replace it. You also have more glamour options that way when it comes to Alexander, especially if you're not doing Savage and you're not going to get the dialable versions of the loot. Next question. Hi, Happy. I'm just doing the one question. I know I did the 5 for that one guy, but that's because they were literally like 2-word answers. What's one of your favorite cutscenes? That's a tough one. One of my favorite cutscenes. You know, the last cutscene in the level 50 Dragoon quest line is one of my favorites. The one with Astinian. Also, the one... Actually, you know what? The ones with Astinian are generally my favorite because I like him as a character. But my overall favorite... I'm not going to spoil what happens in the cutscene, but all I have to say is one thing. Harsh Fawn. That's all I got to say. Moving on to the next question. Don't you think it's annoying how you lose all your skills when you get level synced? It's annoying to do roulettes at the moment because you keep getting forced back to level 50 or some boring low-level rotation. Can't they just keep us at the rotation we have unlocked so far and just scale the skill damage? That way you can keep practicing and testing your new rotations, but you still do DPS healing that's in line with the dungeon in question. It's more along the lines of what you bring. Because bringing those higher level abilities absolutely make you demolish the dungeon, and they want the experience to at least be comparable for the low levels as it was for us. I completely understand that the thing of removing abilities for the low level sync. I mean, it's something that has been the way it has before, and it's something that I always kind of complain about in the moment, but ultimately I don't care because it means that I can kind of just brain dead my way through that dungeon to get my bonus for the week. Or like when I'm playing Bard and I go back to level 50, I'm like, how do I play this without minuet? Oh, I can move around a lot more now. This is actually pretty good. I don't know. I don't mind it. It's something that's been standard for me, and it's something I've dealt with for a long time in MMOs. So it's something that I'm numb to. That's it. So I'm unbothered by it ultimately in the end. Next question. Hey, Mr. Happy, long-time watcher, first-time poster. 2 questions. It's fine if you can answer just one. Thank you for saying that. That's fine. Because I feel bad sometimes people give me 2 questions and they feel bad I don't answer both of them. But thank you for telling me it's okay. First, do you have any idea if Square Enix is aware of the content you and your peers on the Dream Network put out? I feel if they did, they can get loads of feedback from you folks and your interactions with the 14 community. Oh, they absolutely. They follow, some of the community members follow us on Twitter. Both our personal Twitters and on the Dream Network Twitter. They're absolutely aware. But I don't necessarily think it's more of an appreciation thing than it is a looking for feedback thing. At times I really feel like they're watching me and like saying like, that's a pretty good idea. But I'm sure I'm not the only one who's had this idea. I'm not going to take credit for some sort of change that they came up with. A lot of the times it's just, to me, the most common sense change. And I feel like they thought the same thing. It was probably the most common sense change. But yeah, they're definitely aware of us. I remember when I went to the fan festival for 2014, I walked up to Foxclawn, which, if you don't know who Foxclawn is off the top of your head, he's the guy who's always sitting alongside Yoshi P in the live letters, the other guy speaking Japanese, who looks really cool. And I walked up to him at the fan festival. First of all, discovered he speaks perfect English, which makes me think, could you just translate for us, like, live, since you know English? Like, maybe it's not perfect, but it was pretty damn good. I walk up to him and say, hey, can we get a picture together? And he says, sure. And then he says, what's your character name? And he looks at my name tag. He's like, oh, I know you. You're the guy who does the YouTube videos. So they absolutely know about the Dream Network and the people who are creating content on it. I just don't know if they're using it for that reason, as much as just appreciating that people care about the game as much as they do and are willing to devote that much of their lives to doing it. So I'm going to answer just a couple more questions. Hopefully that answer was satisfactory. It's actually fun always answering that question because it reminds me of the Foxclawn story. I'm going to answer a couple more questions. We actually had a lot more questions this week, like significantly more questions than in the previous weeks. Maybe that's people re-asking from last week because of the whole one question thing. I'm not sure. But I'm going to try to get three more questions I'll get, and then I'm going to go render this and get it live and go back to sleep because my head is killing me. Let me take another sip of this iced tea real quick. It's iced tea with no ice in it, by the way. It's just cold. Still cold after this entire video recording, too. Surprising. Next question. Sup, Happy? Quick question for you regarding Scholar. I realized that while I'm manually controlling my fairy, I have to hit pet actions several times for it to go off successfully. I know where this is going. For example, if Celine is in the middle of casting Embrace, it doesn't go off. I'll have to watch their cast bar and then press the action at the right time, which honestly just involves me slamming the action like a maniac. Is there a way to set a macro that will cancel their Embrace? Actually, I believe there is. I don't know if it still works, though. So first of all, what you're facing is the ability queuing system, where it'll finish the current cast of an ability before then queuing in the next ability they are going to use. If no ability is queued, then the fairy, of course, just looks for the next opportunity to cast Embrace. So I believe it's a steady macro. Is that what it is? Some scholar's going to have to remind me exactly what it is. You can macro like Whispering Dawn or Fey Wind and macro it alongside, I think, the steady command in order to cancel their current ability, force them to walk towards you and do the next ability. I don't know if that's it. I feel like that doesn't work, but I know there are scholars out there that have a specific macro that does exactly what you're asking, and I'm almost positive it's a steady macro. Somebody who's a scholar, answer me. Answer that question in the comment section under. Look for that question. Look for the word steady. Just Control F steady in the comment section of this video eventually, and hopefully you'll have the right answer to your question. Next question. Hello, Mr. Repost of a question from week 50. For someone who is in a free company of real-life friends, what is the best way to find a raid group? Not in that free company. It's not even about your friends. You say your friends get distracted a lot and most of them are not raiders. It's not about that. It's about that the only real thing you need a raid group for right now is Savage, and going in there with friends is sure to sour relationships. I've seen it so much already when it comes to people that I know just going at each other's throats because they're like, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. How are we screwing this up? We've been doing this for so much, and it's just, ugh. Don't raid with friends. Raid with a raid group. I'd honestly look in the party finder for a group that's looking for someone, or on the forums for a group, but not necessarily needing to entirely join a free company, because you may find that when you're forced to play alongside these people, when you're reliant on them to perform at 100% in order to complete the content given to you, that unless they all happen to be adequately skilled, you may find yourselves at each other's throats, and you don't want to sour relationships like that over a game. It sounds so stupid that people would do that, sour relationships over a game, but it's hard not to when you want this so bad, but at the same time you just want to be friends with these people, but you don't know how to tell them that they suck, and it's hard, man. Just don't raid with good friends, because they may not be good friends by the time you're done raiding with them. That's my best advice, unfortunately. And this is going to be the last question. It is going to be, let's see, first time asking, so I've increased luck on drops in Alexander Savage. I have the worst luck in drops in Alex Savage. Yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible. Anyway, moving on, I got a couple of them. I guess it's the last one I might be able to do too. One, what is your favorite class job story arc in terms of the actual story? Dragoon. I think I'll go with my answer from before, the Dragoon storyline. And since I already answered that before, I guess it's fair that I answer your second question. And two, what do you think the chances are of a Gunblade wielding job coming into the game, and when do you think we'd get it if we were to? Sorry. I mean, it's not like we can't get a hold of one with all the Garleans we've wiped out, and there's bound to be a few defectors. I don't think it's like there's no job around using that weapon, I think, is the main concern. It's just a weapon of choice that is used amongst classes that already exist, that the Garleans they use abilities that of our pre-existing classes, and it's just a weapon of choice for some of them. I don't know if there's ever going to be a point where we have a Gunblade as a weapon type, as an actual weapon type for its own devoted class or job. I mean, it's not like there aren't jobs out there that could use it. I just don't see its weapon type, and then the balancing of whether it's how much melee it does versus how much range, because a Gunblade isn't meant to be used as a ranged weapon, even though that's what the Garleans pretty much end up using it as. Like, it's pretty much like a backwards musket. Like, a musket is a gun with a sword attached. This is a sword with a gun attached, and I don't know. It's, to me, when I think Gunblade, I think of the Final Fantasy VIII version, where he would pull the trigger, but in the middle of a melee strike, to do almost like an extra shot to deal more damage. You never just saw because then you have to be concerned with the balance between being a ranged and being a melee. We very clearly set the standards that ranged will do less damage than melee because of the utility that they offer. And we've also set the standard that melee generally do more than the rest because they don't offer as much utility, and they're generally in the most danger being close up to the boss. That is, of course, very subjective because most mechanics target everyone in Heavensward, regardless of their position. So it's just a matter of the freedom of movement versus the ability to create distance from the boss, and there's a lot of little things that have to be taken into effect, and mostly uptime being one of them. It's a question of, would this job even be worth putting into the game? Where would it fall on the damage scale? Where would it fall on the utility scale? It would be pretty rough. And at the same time, it would also be interesting to see them pull it off. So I'm not going to say it won't ever happen. I just don't see it ever happening. And if anything, not till 5.0. There you go. 5.0 is my guess for a Gunblade job. Anyway, thank you everyone for asking your questions this week. I know there were a lot of questions I missed, and I spent a lot of time talking about certain questions. It's just, I kind of wanted there to be less questions this week, and then I saw there were like 12 more questions than usual. I was like, of all the weeks, the week where I'm not feeling so hot, although it's actually getting literally hot in here because I had to turn my AC off for the recording, so I'm going to get back to that and go take another nap. Anyway, I'm going to get this posted. Thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting the channel. I will see you guys for the 1-year anniversary of Mondays with Mr. Happy next week. Maybe I'll wear a birthday hat or something. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Anyway, thank you for watching. I'll see you all next week. Be sure to ask your questions for next week in the comment section. Not in the comment section of the video below. In the description of the video, because a lot of people ask where they can ask questions. There's a link to a forum post on Dream Network's website. That is where you can ask your questions. That is the best place to go to ask the questions. That is where they are categorized and easy for me to access and read. So, anyway, I'll see you guys next week. And until then, take care.